I'm quite happy to be introduced by Bruno because he was the first one doing mobile development in Liferay, and he did such a great job. And if Liferay has mobile solutions, it's thanks to him. So we are going to talk about web development for mobiles, native development, and also hybrid. So nowadays, we can say that everything is mobile. So you probably have a mobile device in your pocket. You probably have a smartwatch. You have a lot of devices. And at this point, we can say that mobile is everything that is not a desktop. So you know that everything seems to be mobile today. And when you approach a mobile project, you have three alternatives. You know that you can do your responsive website, which mainly you work with CSS at CSS level. You can have the native approach, where you try to make the most of your device capabilities, and you have the middle in between, which is a hybrid, trying to make the best of both worlds. So for the website, let's see the evolution of the web in these 20 years. And we can see that the web has evolved a lot in these years. And Liferay was born in 2000. We as a company, as a product, was born in the middle of this evolution. And we get all of these transitions and evolutions in our core as a company. So we started as a web company. When you approach a mobile project, you have two alternatives. When you approach a mobile website, you have two alternatives. The first one would be using a mobile detection approach. So using this plugin, which was released a few years ago and has been updated last month, you detect which device is requesting a page, and you send the right version for that device. So you can have several versions of each page. Each version is optimized for that device, and then send the right version to the right device. This is one of the approaches that is usually applied in projects. But also you have the responsive approach. With the responsive, you make sure that at a CSS level, your website will be OK in different screen sizes. So you adapt sizes, margins, images, and you do that to make sure that everything will render OK. With Lexicon, you can do this very easily. Thanks to Lexicon and our Bootstrap integration, you can do this quite easily because you have the framework, the visual framework, to do it both for desktop and both for mobile. So, as more recap, if you go for a mobile strategy and you go for the website approach, you can use the mobile detection approach or the responsive design one. And both are fully supported in Liferay since version 6.2. But what about native? Native is a radically different approach. For native, you need to code your project more than once. So you need to do it for Android, you need to do it for iOS. For a native, we provide you Liferay Screens. Liferay Screens is the tool that helps you to do this faster, easier, and better. It's a library of visual components that helps you to provide functionality out of the box. In this case, you can see the same component, which is a sign-up form, that is already wired to your server. You don't have to code anything, just drag and drop, and you can customize the UI. You can extend it, you can change the colors, you can change the UI, everything. So just taking those components, you can build your own mobile app. They are native, and in first version that was released 3 years ago, we released 9 screenlets. That's the name we give to this component. In version 2, we released up to 20 screenlets. So with these 20 screenlets, you can create any kind of mobile applications. You just combine them in different ways to do your mobile application. But now, in this DEVCON, we are releasing Liferay Screens 3.0. In this version, we've been working very hard, and we have released just one. But it's not a normal screenlet. is just the most powerful screenlet of all of them. Why? Because with this new screenlet, you will be able to do a whole application. You don't need to combine several screenlets, different screenlets. With only one screenlet, you do a whole application. Let's see why. So, again, if you prefer to go for the mobile apps strategy, you have the native approach. And this is fully supported since version DXP, version 7. But, again, you are the Liferay community. You are the Liferay developers, Liferay clients. And you probably are web developers, right? There are very few native mobile developers in our community. So you wanted to make sure that we provide you the best tools for you. Probably iOS and Android native developer tools are not the right tools for you. Maybe yes. But we are sure that you are confident with front-end technologies like CSS and JavaScript. So we wanted to provide you those tools. And for this is a hybrid approach. What does hybrid mean? It means that your mobile app is like a huge web view, a single web view, and your app runs inside it. It's just like the same as a browser. You run your website inside a browser, so you run your hybrid app inside a web view. And also you can have some plugins, JavaScript plugins, that interact with the native part. With those plugins, they are just plain JavaScript code. You can use the native capabilities of the device. For this, you have Cordova. Cordova is an open source project, very used, widely used in every project, hybrid project out there. And they provide you 2,000 plugins. So you can interact with any kind of native behavior of your device using those plugins. And what we did do? So we took Cordova, that's an engine, and we integrated the Cordova engine inside Screens. So with Liferay Screens, you already have all the capabilities of Cordova with Liferay Screens 3.0. So you can use your Cordova projects inside Liferay Screens. The approach is a bit different. Instead of having one single huge web view in your app, and everything happens inside that app, you have several of those. The navigation is native, so you can make the most of fluent navigation, smooth animations. You keep the best of the native world. But also, when you need to present a content to the user, you use the hybrid approach. You use that web view, and you make the most of the hybrid approach. You get the flexibility of having HTML rendered inside your app. And this is the web screenlet. This is the single screenlet we added. And with web screenlet, you can do a whole mobile application. So let me introduce you Fadi. Fadi is going to show you how easy it is to do this.
Hi, everyone. Hello. It's good? OK. So hi, everyone. So I'm going to go through a quick demo. So the main reason for this demo is just to show you in 15 minutes, I'm going to build a whole mobile native application for Android just using Liferay Screens, right? So I have an online website that he has built. And what I'm going to do in this 15 minutes, I'm going to build an Android application to connect and get some data from this site. And I'm going to use Liferay Screens. So I'm going to use 3 main screenlets components just to integrate with that site. So what I did here, I just create an empty project just for our time. I did this before the demo. I just create an empty project in Android. And the first thing I need to do to make sure that my Android project is connected to the server is 2 simple steps. The first thing is inside your build folder, you need to define your Liferay Screen APIs. So Liferay can import this, the mobile Android app can import this APIs. The next step is you need to create this file server_context. And inside that file, you need to define your server information so that Liferay can connect to this one. That's it. This is the 2 steps that you need to do so that you can start using Liferay Screens inside your Android app. Right? So I have an app here. I already create some blank activities that I'm going to start filling with some information. So I have my emulator running, and as you can see, the first activity is blank. So what I'm going to do is I need to create the main activity here and just start to adding the first screenlet we have here is the login screenlet. So it's basically, I'm telling my Android app using the login screenlet to connect to my user store inside my site so that user can get authenticated from Liferay site. Right? So to do this, I have already the code just for the time. I'm going to copy and paste. So this is the first code I need to add here. So I'm calling the web screenlet, and inside the web screenlet, there is some properties related to Android for the interface, and there's some more properties related to Liferay. So as you can see here, I define that I need to use the screen name for login. I don't want to use the email, and I need the credential store to be auto, right? So I added my login screenlet. So now this login screen on the interface. The next step I need to do is to go to my Java class, and inside that Java class, I need to catch the events happening by the login screenlet. So when someone successfully logs in, I need to move to the next activity. When someone is not successfully logged in, I need to show him an error message, right? So to do this, it's just simple steps. The first thing is I need to implement the listener here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement the listener. So for the login screenlet, it's called login listener. So that's obvious. And then here I can implement the methods. So here, as you can see, I implemented the on login success, I need to add my code, and on failed, I need to add an error message, right? One extra step I need to do here is to path the object of this activity to the screenlet so that the screenlet can trigger their event through this activity. So what I'm going to do now here, I'm going to just add those 2 lines of code. And those 2 lines of code is basically I'm saying get from the activity my login screenlet, which is I define this is the ID of the login screenlet, and then finally set the listener of this to this object. So now I'm ready to start catching the events happening by this screenlet. So on successful login, I need to just move to the next screenlet, move to the next activity. I'm going to add this here. And on login failed, I need to show an error message. Right? So just showing this error message. Let's test this. So I'm going to just run my application now. Now you can see my login screen is here. So I'm just going to add wrong username and password, click sign in. And now you can see the error message is here. So let me sign in with a real user. Right? And just sign in. Now it takes me to an empty activity. So that means my activity works right. Right? So the next thing I want to do is to use another screenlet just to introduce another thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the next screenlet that I moved to. And I'm going to show you about our dynamic data list form. So I built a form on my site. And let me show you this. So I have a form here that I built on my site, and I need to consume this form on site Liferay Screenlet. So let me open the form here. Right, so I have this form is for service request. I need to add this form in my screenlet. To do this, again, simple steps. Let's do it again here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just copy the screenlet DDL form code, and I'm going to add it to my activity. Right? And in my Java code, I need to do the same things I did it with the login screenlet. I need to listen to the events fired by this form. So if someone submit a form, I need to move to the next activity where I'm going to add another web screenlet. So same steps, right? So here I need to implement the listener for the form screenlet, which is called DDL form, right? And now I need to implement the method for this. So I have this method to implement. And the next step is the same, it's just to path the object of this activity to the listener of the web screenlet. So I'm just going to do that very fast. So So inside my activity, I look by the ID for the screenlet for the form, and then I pass this object to the listener. And now inside the add records, I need to add my code here. So when someone submit a record, I need to move to the next activity. So I'm getting the code for this. Right? So now I have my activity ready, so I can run my project again. Right, as you can see here, I can log in. And the login would take me to my forms. Right, one step I forgot to mention here, inside your form screenlets, when I add it, I can define my ID for which form I need to use. So inside my server here, so I create a form, this is the ID for the form. I just copy and paste this here. And this for the data management for this form. So I have here the service request. I just copy this and add it for the structure ID. So this is how you add a form screenlet, and then you add the ID for the form that you want to use inside it, right? So this is the screenlet that I need. And now I have the screenlet empty. So from my mobile app, I'm going to add some data inside the form. All right, and just add any data here. I'm sorry for that. It's just, I click on the wrong button. There you go. Let me just do it very quick again here. Right, so I'm adding some form code here. Right, and then I'm going to click submit. So that would take me to the next screen, empty screen where I'm going to add my next screenlet. But what I want to show here is that I was able to, whenever I add from mobile phone, got added in Liferay Instant. And the nice thing is, everything you can manage it from Liferay. So let's say in the future, you came up and said, I want to add a new field to my form. Usually with normal development, you need to manage Liferay, your mobile app separate than your desktop application. But here, you can manage everything from one place. So I can go to my data definition, and I can go to my data definition here and add a new field. So I can just drag and drop and add my field here. Right? And I'm going to keep it the same name here. Click Save. And now I didn't redeploy my app or anything. I'm just going to sign out and just sign in again. And you can see my field got added to my application. So just with a simple step, I was able to add a field without redeploying the app. Everything is managed from Liferay side. All right, so let's get back to my screenlet project. So now I'm going to show the new web screenlet. So now what I'm going to do is, inside the site, I have this dashboard. So this dashboard is already developed on my site, and I want to use the web screenlet to take this code and add it to my native application. So I don't want to redevelop this application again, right? So I'm going to use the web screenlet, the new component introduced, so just I can get this application and add it to my mobile application. So I'm going to open my code again and go to the next activity. Right, in my next activity, I'm going to add the web screenlet. So it's basically adding, so most of the code I'm going to add it in my Java class, which is I'm going to write right now. But in your activity, you just need to hold a place where in the activity, what code you want to add here, right? And then in the Java class, you're going to get an instance for this web activity, and you're going to inject your code inside it. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to do the same steps. I'm going to implement here the web listener for the web screenlet. Right, and now I'm going to, so on the activity create, I'm going to again instant for the web screenlet. So now what I did here is, let me add this on the outside of the method. So on the activity create, I just get an object from the web screenlet that I have on my activity. And then now there is a method called load dashboard. That's where I'm going to call the web screenlet, pass the URL, and start to change the interface so that it can fit inside my mobile browser. So this method is here. I'm just going to copy and paste this. And this is the most interesting part here. Okay, so inside my load dashboard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure this web screenlet. So I'm looking for this URL in my application. So this is my application, and I'm looking for this URL. And here what I need to do is, this dashboard is actually a private page, because every user login, there is some screenlet, there is some application they can view and some application they cannot view. So web screenlet, they can actually inherit even the preferences and the permissions that you actually define on your Liferay instance. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to path the username and password that the user used to log into the application to the web screenlet. And I'm using GS file and CSS just to change the interface. So basically what I did here, let me open that file, is inside the CSS file, I just removed from this page all the controls that I don't need. So I just called this CSS classes and make the display none. If you want also, you can inside your, let me open that GS file. Inside your GS file, you can actually write your code. You can detect which HTML tag you want to change. You can replace it. So you can get the whole UI from your desktop, change it, add colors to it, and then show it inside the mobile browser, right? So now I'm ready to test this dashboard, but just to save some time, I'm going inside the main activity class. And instead of moving, so after successful login, instead of going to activity 1, I'm going to activity 2 just to save some time here, and just running my application now. And now I'm going to log in with Bruno. And when I log into Bruno now, this is the web screenlet getting my code from my server, and now it showed me the dashboard. This is the whole Java application. I need to rewrite it again. As you can see, it's all Java application running here. I can actually use all the Java code that I used inside my web browser and add it inside my mobile application. Just to show that I define in my site the permission that there is another user called Judy. Whenever Judy logins, she's not going to view this login. So if I sign out here and just log in with Judy, so Judy will check her dashboard. And now, as you can see, she doesn't see the gauges dashboard just because she doesn't have permission to. So we even inherit the permission we define inside the web, inside our mobile application now. Last thing I want to talk about is the Cordova. So now, let's say inside my Liferay site, I create a blank page. And we add this task. So basically, inside this one, what I need to do is to create a button, and that button fire a Java method called call office. So I need to map this call office Java call to a real Cordova plugin to make the phone do a real phone call here. So what I did here is I already have the code here. Just for the time, I'm going to show how it works. So I'm going to go back here to the first activity since it has the code. And then inside this activity, so I have the third activity that calls the Cordova code. Let me open that one. Yeah, here you go. So basically, it's another web activity, web screenlet that I add inside my activity. And then I configure my Cordova to look for this page. And then let me go back here. So to look to this page, and now here I enable my web screenlet to connect to Cordova plugin inside my Android phone. And now I still add my GS class and CSS. And inside my GS class here, what I did is call the Cordova phone call functionality so that I can, from a Java HTML code that I have on my site, connect it to do a real call inside my phone here. So let's test this. So what I'm going to do is just rerun my application again. And now I'm going to log in as Bruno. And now inside Bruno, I'm going to the activity to call us. So now there is a button. When I click on this, that would call the Cordova plugin to do a real call inside my phone. So I was able to get some code from Liferay connected to Cordova plugin to do a real call inside mobile phone. Thank you.
So, wonderful demo, Paddy. Thank you very much. And this is wonderful because we are mixing the native world and the hybrid world, and we have the best of both. So what are the advantages? So you will need or you will use a web view only when needed. In the old approach, in the old Cordova approach, you had one single web view and everything happened inside that. In this case, you choose the web view when you need it. If not, you can choose the native path. You have native navigation. Transitions, animations are smooth. Everything is more native. Users like the native feel. You can also take advantage of having a legacy app and move it gradually to the different approach. Imagine you have a native app and you can make it more hybrid. You can do now. Imagine you have a Cordova app. You can make it more native. You can add a new feature and add it natively instead of adding, again, hybrid. So you can turn any feature to native or any hybrid feature to native, or you can turn any hybrid feature to native, the opposite. So we mix the best of native and hybrid. So this is the final piece. If you go for the mobile apps branch, you need a hybrid. And last year, it was impossible. But this year, with this release, we make it possible. But one more thing. What about the cross-platform approach? Probably some of you know this. Hybrid means the web view approach is one of the possibilities, but we also have the cross-platform approach. It means that you have a single code base written in JavaScript, written in C#, different languages, and thanks to one framework, one technology, you compiled that single code base into two binaries. One binary for Android, one binary for iOS. These frameworks, there are several of them, but probably the most famous is Xamarin. Xamarin is a very enterprise-oriented framework for this kind of development, cross-platform development. And what would they do? Okay, we did Liferay Screens for Xamarin. So we have our 20 screenlets, native screenlets. We integrated them into Xamarin, so you can now use our 20 screenlets in your Xamarin apps. That's great news. So this is just the final piece to complete the whole strategy of mobile. Now, with this version, you can use cross-platform development with Liferay. So now everything is complete. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jose. Thanks very much. Good job. We have some time for questions. Is there anyone with questions? You there? Just a second, Jose.
Hi. Thanks for your presentation. Mixing hybrid and native gives you a different feel, right? It's quick and suddenly it's slow. One problem of your web view is caching. How do we handle this?
Yeah, good question. We have a cache level, so we cache every image. You cache static content in the client level. Also, you have all the caching advantages of Liferay. You already know about that. But for the next version, we will be working more on caching and more on offline support, which probably is one of the questions you already have. So right now, the caching mechanisms are the standard ones. Static content is cached in the client, and you have all the caching of Liferay.
Hello, me again. We started yesterday on that question, but yeah, it's a similar one with offline support. So right now, it's if you implement the web view screenlet, it only works when you're online, right?
Right now, yes.
But there is a plan to...
Yeah, there is a plan. This is the next step.
Okay. And is there a plan to, if you start the app the first time in offline mode, to have the current content already compiled with the app?
Yeah, probably the best strategy is your first screen. If you want to load it real quick, your first screen should be native. So just use the native screenlets. And those screenlets has offline capabilities. So you can start the main screen of your app in native. You can mix both. You can start in native. It will start up real quick. And you can have offline content. And then the next level of navigation, maybe you need it hybrid. But you can mix. And if you really need offline support, you can do that part of the application using native screenlets. And all of our 20 screenlets have offline support by default.
But is there a plan to implement that for the web view screenlet as well?
Yeah.
To have the current version of the site, the HTML and JavaScript code, CSS, compiled with the app and then reload it once it's online?
Yeah, it's quite challenging because you know that server-side content is dynamic. So we have to take care about what you have to cache, when you invalidate it. But that's the next step in our roadmap.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Any other question over there?
Thank you for your presentation. I have one question about cross-browser platforms. You was talking about Xamarin. Are you planning other cross-platforms like Codename One or an ability to port screenlets to this platform ourselves?
We did some research about React Native, and it is possible, but right now it's a legal issue with React. You know probably about that. But technically it's feasible. So we also did some research with native script, which is another cross-platform framework. So yeah, the idea is just to choose more frameworks and see the adoption in the community and choose probably one more.
Okay, I think that's it. Thanks very much, Jose.
Thank you.